Welcome to the Queer Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Venegoni. Here we have conversations with artists, healers, and activists who enliven the LGBTQ communities and who empower our queer spirits to flourish. My guest today is Mike Iamele. For nearly a decade, Mike has helped hundreds of GBTQ plus men to integrate shame and figure out what they subconsciously do every time they're successful, through a process called sacred branding. In 2014, Mike accidentally came out to millions when he wrote an article about falling in love with a man after identifying as straight, and 100,000 people shared it overnight. He's also the author of Enough Already: Create Success on Your Own Terms. Mike has shared his provocative and vulnerable take on sexuality and shame in hundreds of magazines and podcasts, including NPR, CBS, and Huffington Post. In our conversation, Mike shares about his unique work with clients of mapping sensitivities. He even does a live demo with me. We talk about how this practice can help you discover your superpowers in all aspects of your life, from sex and relationships to having a better experience on the job. Find more about him and his work at MikeIamele.com. That's Mike, IAMELE.com. Hi, Mike. Welcome to the Queer Spirit.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, Mike, I only just discovered you maybe a few months ago through Instagram and was immediately drawn into your work and your energy. And, you know, one of the things that you talk a lot about doing, especially working with gay and queer men, is mapping sensitivities. And I was wondering if you could start out by sharing a little bit more about what that is and how you work with it and what inspired you to create that work.
Yeah, sure. Mapping sensitivities. What the heck does that mean? So basically, it's just what it sounds like, which I know sounds like it's not going to be true, but it will be, I promise you. It's just mapping our lived experiences and figuring out what is it we subconsciously do every time that we're successful. Why do we feel the way we do? Why does this turn us on? Why do we have shame over here? If we can understand what we're sensitive to and the conditioning we have in the world, everything about us starts making sense. Like every fetish, every desire, every shame is incredibly logical. I always tell people, humans, contrary to popular belief, are not illogical. There's actually a really clear reason for everything we're doing. We may not know that reason, so we'll call it illogical, but it's actually really, really clear. And, it's work that on the surface, it sounds a little bit complicated, but can I give you an example really quickly? Because this might help.
Yeah.
Especially as we're talking about spirituality here. So, it's not just, yes, I'm helping you understand your fetishes, your desires, how to meet better partners, but it's really spiritual work. And, what we're really talking about is purpose. So a lot of times people will come up to me and they'll say, Mike, I've got it. I figured it out. I know what my life purpose is. I'm meant to be a life coach. I'm meant to be a writer. I'm meant to be in this relationship. Awesome. I always say, fantastic. If that feels right to you, who the hell am I to say no? But here's the thing. If you can achieve it, that means you can also fail it, which doesn't really make any sense. How could you fail your purpose? And that just creates shame. Like at some point, you're not going to be doing this. And furthermore, if you could achieve it, that implies you didn't have it at a certain point. So did you just not have a purpose as a baby? That doesn't really make sense. Of course you did. Like you have a purpose as a baby. Now, as a baby, you didn't have achievements. You didn't necessarily even have language, but you had sensitivities, right? Every baby's sensitive. Some babies are sensitive to connection, let's say, and they love looking their moms in the eyes, and they feel more alone or more disconnected when they don't feel that because they're so sensitive to connection. And as those babies get older, they're going to be the kids who are really sensitive to feeling left out. They're going to be the kids who are really good at making people feel included and building community because they're sensitive to connection. They're going to be the people as they get older who are going to really be turned on by eye contact or holding hands during sex. There's actually a very logical understanding of everything about their life. Some babies are sensitive to music. They're going to be hearing notes that I can't hear. They can see, taste, touch, smell things I just can't. Because sensitive literally means to sense more. We experience life deeper in that area. So our trauma is going to be around that. Our desires, our turn-ons, our superpowers. People love when I help them to understand their sexual superpowers because there's something you experience deeper than anyone and you intuitively do differently than anyone. So when I say mapping sensitivities, what I literally mean is we're just mapping what you are most sensitive to at the core and understanding how to build a life that feels like you.
Mm-hmm. I like how you clarified, that sensitivities is just like what we're more attuned to. Because I know for me, when I first hear like sensitivities, I'm just like, well, why do we want to talk about like what I'm vulnerable to, right? Because that's what I think of. And I imagine a lot of people here when they think, well, why do I want to get closer to something that's sensitive? That's something that I want to keep away from like my awareness, but even from other people, right?
Totally. I mean, this idea, we've all, many of us, especially probably listening to this podcast, have been told we're too sensitive, right? We're too much in some area. And so, but the thing about the word sensitive is it literally means to sense more. The only things that aren't sensitive are that which aren't alive, right? Anything that's alive is sensitive. And we could argue that the more sensitive something is, the more alive it is, because the more it's engaging with life around it, right? It's feeling and sensing and seeing life around it. And so if we can start to understand like, oh, the reason, my husband might say to me, oh, you're being sensitive about that. I can pause and say, you're right, I am. And here's why. I'm sensitive. Like, I'll give you an example because this is a good one for couples here. So let's say that I am telling my husband a story when he gets home from work. It's a personal story. And he's scrolling his phone. I know many people may be able to relate to this one. And so in real life, to be honest with you, it's probably the other way around. But go with me here, because we need this story. So he's scrolling his phone, and I feel bad. And now my gut reaction is to yell at him and to start screaming, you are always on your phone, you do this all the time to me. That's my gut reaction. But if I can pause myself, if I can just get myself 2 seconds of spaciousness and say, okay, what's being triggered? And go through my 6 sensitivities. Is it aligned? Is it zany? Is it free? Ding, 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 vulnerable. That's what it is. I feel overly vulnerable. And if I can just say to him, Garrett, that's his name, Garrett, I feel really vulnerable right now because I'm sharing a personal story. You aren't paying attention to me. I feel overexposed and I don't want to feel this way. So if you need to scroll your phone, I understand, but I'm not going to keep telling you the story because I'm going to keep feeling bad. I'm going to get mad at you. So I understand if you're tired from work and you need to scroll your phone, but when you're ready, I don't want to be vulnerable until you have the space to hold it for me. And our fight changes because the truth is he could yell at me, you're being too sensitive. I just want to be on my phone for a moment. And he's right. I am being sensitive, but it's about who I am and what I'm most sensitive to in the world. And if I can language that, now I have more agency of how I show up in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that especially for queer people, especially for male identified queer people, that was probably something that we were told a lot when we were kids, is you're being too sensitive, right? And so I think what a lot of people do in our youth is that we shut that down. And as you just said, sensitivity is just something that's alive. And so we deaden that.
Absolutely. Most of us have been told in our life, you're too sensitive. And what is interesting is now when people say it to me, I take it as a compliment because I'll give you an example. I'm always drinking mason jars of water. And the reason I drink out of mason jars, 2 reasons. One here, I drink a lot of water and I'm incredibly lazy. So I don't want to fill up my water all day long. I just want my big water next to me all the time. But theoretically, if I went to your house and you gave me a tiny little cup of water, I would drink out of it because I want the water. If you gave me that big mason jar, but you stuffed it with, soda, which I don't drink often, I probably wouldn't drink out of it because I want the essence inside. The container is just there to give it to me. Mm-hmm. Now, when most people say to me, Mike, you're too sensitive, what they actually mean, but they're not saying, is, Mike, you're too sensitive for me to handle in this container. They're telling me it's the wrong container for my water. If I had a gallon of water and poured it into a little cup and it spilled all over the floor, I wouldn't shame the water. I would get a bigger pot. So if somebody says to me, Mike, you're too sensitive, then I say, okay, you're telling me this isn't the right space for me. That's okay. But as kids, we didn't have those tools. We didn't know these things. So we immediately think, I'm too much. Let me shame that water and limit it and limit it and limit it. And what we're talking about there is, quite frankly, like I said before, limiting life force, right? Whether we're using, TV, porn, drugs, whatever. And by the way, there's no judgment on any of these things. They can be used productively and disempoweringly for us. But any of these things to limit our life force or to shut down. And we've all done it. We all have ways of disassociation because it's painful to feel that sensitive, to feel those things strongly in an unsafe container, a space that can't hold us in life. And then what often happens is we say, well, I'm looking at Instagram and everybody's got the perfect relationship or body or job or whatever, and I just need to pick up that container without any sense of what we want what inside the container. So it's kind of like somebody giving me that mason jar with soda in it. I drink it. I don't want that. So I'm not feeling fulfilled and I shame myself. Something's wrong with me. Why can't I just be satisfied? Mm-hmm. It is infinitely easier to say, okay, I need to feel vulnerable and free. Okay, if I'm talking to a guy and he doesn't make me feel vulnerable and we don't have deep talks, it's not a fit for me. I can tell that right away in how I structure the relationship if I know what I'm sensitive to. And so much of my work is actually helping us reclaim who we are and releasing the shame that told us we're not allowed to be who we are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I wonder if you can give us an example of the ways that you help people identify a sensitivity.
Yeah, a lot. So we can do a little demo here. It takes me in real life, which podcast hosts don't like, so I made up a way to do it for you. It takes me 2.5 hours. And so when I work one-on-one with a person, and really what I'm doing is, it just feels like this. We're having a casual conversation. I always tell people, don't give me what you think I want, because people, want to give me the sensitivities I want. I just want to know who you are. I'm good at my job. I'll get it out of you. So just talk to me. But what I'm doing is I'm mapping emotional patterns. And then based on the emotional patterns, I give people 3 different visualizations. And the reason for visualizations is many of us are conditioned with language that isn't actually what we feel in our body. So we're just used to saying certain things or certain turn-ons that may or may not have a body response. We're very conditioned that way. And so what I will do is give these visualizations because I want people to feel something in their body. And then all I do, I'll give you my full hand today, is I will spit back at them, do they feel this? And they're all patterns they've already told me. And I just want to see if it matches what they feel in their body. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. We're going to end up with about 100 words. They will swear to me that this is the epitome of their purpose, everything they've ever felt or wanted to feel. In 8 years, I've never had someone not do that. They might cry. And then we play games to systematically compact these into usually 5 or 6 is common for most people. And what we're doing is really just looking for umbrella terms. If I felt these 6 things, I would feel all the others. And so that's the overview. Now, no podcast host wants to hear that because we can't do that today. So a few years ago, I created a very short, I call it my shoddy way to do this work. So if you're game and you don't have to, I'm happy to do a short 5-minute demo with you and kind of map some of the stuff in your life. Not asking you anything too vulnerable.
Sure, we can do that.
Let's do it. Okay. Really easy. It's just going to be a few short questions here. And everybody listening can do this along with me. It's very, very simple. Okay. So Nick, I just want you now to think of a few jobs you've had in your life. These could be a current job. This could be podcasting or coaching or sound healing. This could be back in high school when you were a cashier. It could be any job you've ever had. I want you to pick one of those jobs now, and I want you to tell me 3 things that you made people feel. And before you do that, I'm going to give you an example to make it easy. So let's say that you were a teacher and you made students feel empowered, engaged with the material, and safe to learn. Let's say those are the 3 things. So just pick any job or role that you've played and 3 things you made people feel.
Do you want to know what the job is before I tell you?
If you'd like to tell us, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So I spent many years being a barista, both at Starbucks and other cafes. And so let's see. 3 things that I made people feel. So could it be like a fellow employee or a customer?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I guess satisfied would be one, like with clients being satisfied with their beverage or their whatever they ordered. Maybe this feels weird. I'm just going to go what's on the tip of my tongue. Relieved, like, because people kind of like, they feel like, oh my God, I need to have my coffee. I need to wake up before I go do my job. Or I also worked at a location that was near where a lot of clubs were. So a lot of people would come when we were closing before they started their bar shift late at night. So they got their caffeine to keep them awake. And I guess like tended to.
Love it. Okay. So
as caffeine is one of the like few legal drugs that we have in our system, and people felt like, I need this.
Satisfied, relieved, tended to. Beautiful. Okay, give me another job or role and 3 things you made people feel.
I'm going to challenge myself and pick another job that was pretty different from what I've done before. So I worked at the Opera, the San Francisco Opera, doing stage management and production management. And it has to just be one word, right?
Yeah, so just one word that you made. 3
that I made
one
people
words that you made people feel. But you can describe it. That's okay. We can roll with it.
Well, I guess it's interesting. I'm noticing the pattern here as I start to think about this.
You can describe it if it's easier for you.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder because like it was a lot, with like working at a cafe, like the transaction is quick. And so it's like a little bit more potent and more specific. I guess supported because I was supporting their creative pursuits. I guess, I don't know if this would be the same thing, but I guess because they felt supported, then they felt free to do whatever they were going to do. And they didn't have to worry about like, do I have what I need to be on stage and perform? I don't know, this supported keeps coming up a lot because that's what I did for a lot of people, just supported them in whatever it is that they were doing to get done what they needed done.
It's okay. Support's a strong one. Let's keep those two. So you've got supported here, and you've got, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. What was the other word you said? Free. Yes. Yeah. And then they feel free from support. Thank you. Okay, so supported, free. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to challenge you one more job. It could be podcasting, so it can be right here. And 3 things you make people feel.
Well, I'll pick the main job I have right now, which is a therapist. So, which a lot of those same words come up, but additional, they felt seen, they feel heard. And validated. I guess those are
seen, heard, and validated. So beautiful. Okay. So now I want you to think of a challenging moment in your life. Not something re-traumatizing to think about, of course, but something that you think, shit, Mike, that was kind of tough. And you don't have to tell us what it is, but I just want you to tell me 3 things you felt in that moment.
Like the unpleasant things that I felt in that moment? The unpleasant
things that you felt, exactly.
Scared. Worried. I guess scared and worried are similar, but vulnerable, like vulnerable to disease.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those were the sort of overwhelming in those moments.
Yes. Well, we can even add an overwhelmed. Okay. Scared, worried, vulnerable, maybe overwhelmed. So if you had a magic wand and you could go back to that moment and you could change the whole situation and make yourself feel better or what you wanted to feel, what do you think you would have rather have felt in that moment than scared, worried, overwhelmed, vulnerable? 3 things.
Assured. I'm seeing what's happening here. Supported. I mean, I guess I was supported as much as I could have been in that moment, but I mean, I can tell you what it was. It was like when I got my cancer diagnosis. So, my doctor, I guess, was supporting me as best he could, but, more would be helpful having other people in the room. So I said assured, supported, safe, I guess, even though I didn't feel unsafe, there was something about just wanting to feel more safe.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Assured, supported, safe. Beautiful. Okay. One final question. I promise we're done. We'll go to the mapping. I want you to think of a happy moment. Thankfully, let's flip it. A really happy, successful, some moment that feels good for you. You can tell us what it is if you'd like, and then tell me 3 things you felt.
I felt relaxed, at ease, peaceful, joyful.
Beautiful. I love it. Relaxed, at ease, peaceful, joyful. Okay, now all we're going to do is map. Everyone listening can do this with me. You've already been doing it because you're a very, very smart person, Nick. So basically, we're just looking for patterns. And what we're going to do here, because we're doing it very shoddily today, is we're going to mix in because we have so many similar words. So we have words like validated, assured. Let's call that, for the case of today, validated. We're just going to call that today. We have tended to, supported, cared for, all of these. We're going to call that supported today. So we have validated, we have supported. You just said we had relieved, talking about the coffee shop. We had relaxed, peaceful, a whole bunch of words. Let's call that relaxed for right now. So we've got supported, validated, relaxed, and one more. There was something more upbeat. Let's think. You wanted to feel safe. You wanted to feel supported. You wanted to feel assured. Let's see, one more. That my memory is not great always, so we're trying here. Let's take a word like, for some reason the word tended to, even though I put it with supported, I'm just going to put that. Oh, no, I got it. I remember now. Heard and seen. Heard. Okay, so we've got heard, validated, supported, and relaxed. Okay. Just shoddy, I'm just going to play here. I'm going to guess, Nick, I don't know you very well, we met today, but I'm going to guess that in some of the happiest, most successful moments of your life, you felt a sense of feeling validated and heard and relaxed and supported. Is that true?
Sure, yeah.
Sure, why not? And I'm going to guess that in some of the more challenging moments of your life, some of those really dark moments, you felt these opposite of these words. Maybe really tense or on edge or worried or anxious. Maybe, not supported or alone. Maybe, either your voice was stifled or people weren't listening to you and you weren't necessarily being heard out there. Maybe people were invalidating you or your experience. Is that true in some of those worst moments? Great. We love that. What is predictable in the past, reliable in the past is predictable in the future. So good. Now I'm going to make a few guesses about your life. First thing, and I love this one when I'm on a podcast. You can go back. People can listen to other podcasts with me. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Heard or expressed comes up on almost every single time I do this with a podcaster. Do we think a podcast would be good for somebody sensitive to heard? Of course we do. Yes. This comes up all the time. These people tend to be great at not only interviewing and hearing people, but counselors, therapists. This is very, very common because it's great for that sensitivity. That's one of the reasons that they feel drawn to that particular area. Match that with validated, of course. We've got that. Supported. There's a lot that makes a lot of sense for the work that you choose to do. But I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to start to make some other guesses about your life. Because you may be, just given these sensitivities, and I'm just going to make some guesses, you may be a person who's very thoughtful and intelligent, but sometimes you can have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of worry. I see that with the relaxed. And you also are a person who, you might be really good at caring for others, really good at, maybe putting other people first, which is wonderful and great, but there may have been a challenge in some relationships in your life where you didn't always have your needs be kind of heard. You were doing a lot of supporting other people and maybe even, questioning yourself or questioning, not feeling necessarily the feedback that you wanted and the support that you wanted. Is that accurate? Some of that?
Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah, why not? Beautiful. Now, this tells me already, and again, this is your shoddy version. We could do a much better job, but in our 5 to 10 minutes here, it tells me some ways that I'm going to guess are sexual superpowers. And you don't have to validate any of these. I'm just going to throw a few things out there. Things like you are incredibly steady and stable. And I'm going to guess that you give an amazing hug, or you can really hold someone and have this really deep presence where somebody's body can relax as you are holding them or relax with you. I'm going to guess things like, you may really enjoy verbal affirmation or what we sometimes call dirty talk. And you may actually sometimes be caught in the moment and be good at sharing that as well. And what we're doing here is we're just looking at patterns in you. We're looking at, okay, what would validated and heard look like together? What is supported and relaxed look like together? And so what I'm starting to do is understand and guess, I'm predicting, a lot of things in your life. And then what I typically have clients do is build their own association so that they can actually do this themselves and be able to predict based on their own subjectivity, why that relationship didn't work out, why the sex didn't feel good to them, why they're turned on by this. They're very predictable turn-ons. I'm going to let you off the hook, and I'll use another client as an example. So here's one client who came to me because he was going into debt over something very specific, and he had so much shame he couldn't talk to his therapist about this. And so he hired me because he said, Mike, I'm fucked up. I don't know what's wrong with me. I said, okay, well, I've done this work enough. You're not fucked up, but tell me what's going on. And he said, he's a black gay man. He said, I am paying white OnlyFans creators hundreds of dollars to show me their holes. And I'm going into debt because of this. And I don't know what is wrong with me. It's okay. So let's do some mapping first and let's take a look. And so remember, 3 of his sensitivities that we mapped were powerful, calm, and intimate. And I said, okay. I said, so you're a very anxious person. Where's your anxiety the worst? And he said, what do you mean? How would you know I'm anxious? I said, I see calm. I know you're anxious. I said, so where is it the worst? And he said, it's the worst at work. And I said, okay. Is that because you are on a big team, you feel like you're just a number? He said, yes. How would you know that? I said, because I see intimate. If it was intimate, I'd know that you feel calm, but you don't. So, okay. I said, okay, so you're coming home, you're watching porn to relax. That makes sense. Intimate and powerful. He said, are you playing video games? He said, I am. I said, and you always pick a dominant avatar, don't you? And he said, I do. How would you know? I said, powerful. You want to feel powerful. I said, okay. We're going to take this a step further here because now we're going to dig into the OnlyFans thing. So you are a black gay man. On average in your day, how powerful do you feel? And he said, I don't feel powerful often. I said, okay. You don't feel powerful often. You are sensitive to how not powerful you feel. Do you think it would be appealing when you're anxious after a day of work that with a click of the button, you could make these people that you told me were the most powerful people, these white, muscly men, get into a vulnerable position and be submissive to you and you have power over them? Do you think that would help your anxiety at the end of work? And he said, holy shit, I'm not fucked up. I said, you're not fucked up. There's nothing wrong with you, but I don't want you going into debt. So this desire is just a strategy. Let's find ways for you to feel calm and intimate and powerful that aren't putting you into debt. And so that's an example of how that might work.
Great. I want to take a quick break to offer you a gift. I work with many queer folks who struggle with self-esteem, self-acceptance, and confidence. And I get it. Growing up queer is no cakewalk. Living in a world filled with homophobia and oppression can take its toll. Having the strength to be your true self can be a challenge. But you can change that. So if you'd like support taking the first few steps, head over to my website and grab the free mini course, The Self-Confident Queer. Just go to queerhealingjourneys.com/confident. This mini course will walk you through 3 simple steps to help you begin to build your self-worth and confidence today. So head over to queerhealingjourneys.com/confident and get the free course today. Okay, now back to the conversation. And I imagine people are constantly saying, are you psychic? How do you know this?
Yes, I'm intuitive, but no, it's not. And that's the thing I always tell people is you can teach yourself how to do this because it's your language. I'm not giving you words to use. I'm taking your language, your emotional experiences, and what you feel in your body so that you can understand why you feel the way you do and then make more empowered decisions.
Yeah. You're just reflecting it back. You know,
exactly.
we are too close to our own selves, and you're stepping back, a few feet and saying, well, you just tell me what's going on inside and I'll tell you what I see.
Exactly. And all we want to do is understand, the way you use language. I think one of my favorite parts, I'm a big language buff, and the way I want to understand how does your mind, it's what I'm mapping, how does your mind use language? How do you connect emotions? And then how does your mind, so I'll, when we're at that process where we have 100 words and I'm condensing it down, I'm asking people, okay, if you felt liberated, would you automatically feel free? If you felt this, and what we're doing is we're using our body to understand that if I felt these 5 words, I'd automatically feel all these other things because that's an umbrella term for me.
Yeah. And I really like that you're subtly but intentionally getting people to notice like what they're feeling in their body, right? Which I also think is a really big important thing because a lot of queer people become disembodied for a variety of reasons.
One of my favorite things to do, any of us can do this, whether you've done that exercise, by the way, the one Nick and I did together, if you just go to my website, Iamele.com/map, it's free. You can do that exact same thing. Go right there and download a worksheet. But I was going to say is when people get their sensitivities, and for anyone listening, you could just pick a word that you resonate with right now. It's good enough to get started. And what I always have people do is say, for you, Nick, let's do validated. You say validated. Close your eyes and say validated, validated, validated. And what we're doing is we're just noticing, does anything open? Does anything expand? And kind of bring in memories of times when you felt validated. What I want to do is somatically map what does your body do? And then we'll take the opposite of validated. And I often ask people to give me a phrase. So it might be like, you aren't good enough, or, you're too ugly for me, or whatever. Sometime if they weren't validated, saying that phrase and noticing their body and noticing the difference. Because my ideal is that let's say you are in a sexual situation and your stomach clenches, your stomach tightens, and you immediately sense your mind not validated. And now you have an opportunity to say to ask for validation, to ask for dirty talk, whatever it is that's going to help your body relax. We're building that's why I talk about mapping subjectivity. We're building a language for you to understand the various components of yourself.
So how did you come up with this? I mean, you don't have to give us your secret sauce so other people can build it. But, I also imagine, you came from a marketing and branding background, and I can see how these are similar exercises that you would do with a company, as a whole. What is your product about? And what do you want people to feel? It's kind of similar, but it's more just about a person, right?
Yes. So I will be incredibly brief because there are entire podcast episodes on this topic itself. It was a long process, let's just say, involving vomiting blood, almost dying, falling in love with a man for the first time, lots of things. So we'll skip over some of that to a point where I had left my job working. I used to own a PR agency. I left that and I was writing a book. I got a book deal. And in the book, the publisher, my relationship, she was queer herself and she thought my relationship was very interesting. So she asked me to include it in the book. I realized that people in my life don't even know I'm dating a man. I have to, tell people before they find out on the shelves of Barnes & Noble. And so I decided, well, I'm a writer. The best strategy I had, of course, family, friends knew, but, extended people didn't. I was just going to write a blog post and let that, tell a few people who in my life, be done with it. Well, I did that and 100,000 people shared it overnight. And so it was a very overwhelming experience to wake up to millions of people literally talking about your sex life and accusing you of things, saying things, whatever. A very intense experience. And so while all this is going on, basically I at the time was an herbalist and a health coach, and that wasn't satisfying me. And I thought, I am such a failure. I'm making $0. There are millions of people talking about me. And I don't know how these things relate. Like, how does sexuality and purpose and spirituality and herbalism and vomiting blood and same-sex relationship, like, how do any of these things relate? And so I became obsessed with this idea of life purpose. And I, read all the books. I promise you name one, I've read it. I've done all the webinars. I've heard the phrase, by the end of these 60 minutes, you will know your purpose so many times. Doesn't happen, but I've heard that phrase. And basically, you do enough of this stuff, they all say the same thing, right? Figure out your passions, figure out your skills, figure out what the world needs, find that middle point. So I'm doing this. I'm trying to connect all these dots. And look, why do these things have in common? They're so disparate. And I said, oh my God, it's so obvious. How did I miss it? I meant to create a blogging course. And it's going to be about getting a book deal, but it's going to be deep and spiritual, finding your voice, knowing who you are, all this stuff. So it's the end of this year where I had left my job. I had no money basically, but I thought, this is my purpose. I'm going all in. And so I get the fancy lighting kit, the microphone, the business partner, you name it, marketing team, web designer, put thousands of dollars into this thing, put it out to the world. I think 5 people bought it. It was a colossal failure. I lost thousands on this thing. And I just thought, I am done. I am so freaking done. Like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to go beg my partners to take me back in my own company, see if I can still have a job, but I can't do this anymore. And so I did something that changed my life. And if you know my sensitivities, I'll just tell you them right now: aligned, zany, free, unmistakable, successful, and vulnerable. You'll see why this worked. I didn't know this at the time. I decided to host a failure celebration. Now, there was no lofty goal to this. It wasn't like I was all high and mighty. Really, it was, I've spent a year doing something and I don't want this year to feel like a waste. So I failed, but at least I want to feel like I did something. Like, failure implies risk. I did something. I got to celebrate that. And so to have my failure celebration, I had a little thing. I said, tomorrow I'm going back to public relations, but today I'm just going to do the one thing I'm still confident in, offer branding sessions for anybody who wants them. I offered, I think, 9 hours straight, and I'm just going to help you map your brand, and I'm out of here. And I did this in a spiritual group I was a part of, a Facebook group, because I wanted to help all these people. And all of them, or most of them, said to me some variation of, this isn't my brand, this is my life purpose. Like, you just explained my relationship to me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is, your business. I just ask you business questions. And they said, yeah, but, these are psychics, life coaches, healers, therapists. They said, but I see my business as me. Like, everything I told you was me. You've just explained this. And I thought, okay, sure, whatever. I don't care. I'm out. Like, this is nothing. And so one of the women I worked with that day, she told a friend and she said, Mike, can I hire you? The friend emailed me and said, can I hire you? I want to pay you. I said, great. This is the first money I've made in a long time. Yeah, sure. I'll take a day, more to go back to public relations. You can pay me. And she said, what do you call it? And I said, I don't know. It's branding. You're telling me it's purpose. I'll call it sacred branding. Made up that term, slapped it on. And I made a rule that I wouldn't go back to public relations as long as I had people paying me. So as long as someone was coming in each day, I wouldn't go back. And that story was 8 years ago. And so what happened was I began to radically change the way I understood, purpose, subjectivity, a lot of these things, not as the container we achieve, but rather, not your purpose is that you are a life coach, but why life coaching feels purposeful. Why does that container? Because all we're doing in life is pouring water from one cup to the next, right? As if I can't tell you how often people come to me from divorce or being laid off from a job. They say, I need to find my purpose again. It's like, no. We need a new container to hold the purpose that was already there. What was it that felt so good here? And for relationships that don't feel good, why? What can't be held here? I just want you to know what that essence is and find the containers that can hold it fully, so you just get to express all of yourself. And that's basically a very short version of how I got here.
Yeah, I've heard you tell your origin story a lot of times. And so I was like, I'm not going to make them repeat it again. So
I tried to keep it a little bit abridged. But...
yeah. But for those of you out there who want to know, if you follow Mike, you'll find it, the elongated version. So before we wrap up, I'm really curious to hear you share a little bit more about what it means to have zany as a sensitivity.
Great question. Well, hopefully you felt some of it today. I think that I have a short story that I probably haven't shared in many places, so I'll share it. Zany is a weird word, right? Like, that just goes to show. People often think this work is desire work. I have a lot of opinions about that I won't get into today. Desires are fleeting and conditioned. But anyway, you won't end up with the word like zany, or probably vulnerable, because who wants to feel that all the time? But zany, it's a very strange word. And so one day I was, maybe a month after I had started this work, I was flipping channels and I heard the word zany on TV. So I stopped. And it was the 1997 Cinderella. I don't know if you remember, with Whitney Houston and Brandy, I think on ABC. And I heard Whitney Houston singing, and I will not put you through that and sing for you. I'm going to speak it. But the world is full of zanies and fools who don't believe in sensible rules and won't believe what sensible people say. And because these daft and dewy-eyed dopes keep building up impossible hopes, impossible things are happening every day. And I sat there and I thought, oh my God, this word's about doing the impossible and believing in magic and all of these amazing things. And so I'm sitting with this moment, and I go, because I'm me, go look up the etymology of zany, and we have this in common, Nick. The etymology is zanni. It's an Italian word, actually Venetian dialect for Gianni, and it was a stock character in Commedia dell'arte. It's really a predecessor to the clown. And so, interestingly, the clown, as we know, is goofy and is silly, but is the only character who can break the fourth wall and speak directly to the audience, and always delivers the ultimate lessons through the goofiness. And so I'm sitting there, I'm having this real epiphany of like, oh my gosh, this like playfulness is actually my superpower. It's how I can weave past so many things and teach really quickly. And then I think of my grandmother, because my grandmother, we watched Cinderella when I was little, the cartoon version, me and her, and she was the zaniest person I've ever met. She was my fairy godmother. She believed in magic. She was a witch. She was so fun and always dancing. And so as I'm sitting there and having this moment, I remembered that someone years ago gave me a quote that I kept in my wallet, but I never knew who said it. And the quote was, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible." And I loved how flippant that was. Yeah, if I feel like it, maybe it'd be fun to do the impossible. And they said it reminded them of me, so I always kept it. And so I went to Google who said this, and it was Walt Disney. And so it was this moment where I realized, I can't tell you how many times in my life bosses have told me, Mike, you're really smart, but you're too crazy and goofy. You got to tone that down. I have been told this so many times in my life.
You're too much.
You're too much. Exactly. We'll have a whole episode about too muches and your sensitivity, because it's all your superpowers. But yes, I've got that too much so many times. And it was such a gift to realize, I'll tell you, because I'm going to show my whole hand today. Anytime I feel you, Nick, being confused, or maybe the audience being confused, or anytime I'm teaching, I have a few strategies. One is I will tell a more personal, vulnerable story. Two is I will get weirder and louder and goofier, and it is so helpful. I know I do that, and people will understand immediately. And so part of it is understanding, having full agency over our energy, and understanding what we contribute, how we fit into the fabric of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I definitely see your zaniness coming through, especially on your Insta stories.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah. So before I let you go, can you share with us a person, practice, or experience that has supported your queer spirit to flourish?
Yes, so many things. I think that one of them was, I had a pretty unconventional, quote unquote, coming out, right? So we've heard this story with 100,000 people. And so there was some, I had a lot of challenges with queer community, or feeling like I really fit in. And years ago, I decided, well, I've got to work through this. And so I'm going to create queer spaces here in Boston, mostly, honestly, selfishly, because I wanted to feel experiences that were I felt like through Instagram, through social media, I'm seeing one image of what queerness means, and I know that's not true. And so I want to have, more experiences. And I created these meetup groups for a while, and they were amazing. And the conversations and the community was so incredible. And it's what inspired me to start running even virtual groups as well, and we're doing a retreat, creating retreats and things like that. And so honestly, just being around other amazing queer people, I guess, and creating community for that.
Great. So Mike, where can people find you and learn more about your work and your offerings?
Well, we've already heard Instagram, so you are welcome to follow me there. I've been on there for a year now, so I feel like I'm kind of getting the hang of it. So please pull me out of my shell there. Come hang out with me. It's just at Mike Iamele. And also on my website, you're welcome to check out. I already mentioned if you want to try the exercise we did with Nick, it's just mikeiamele.com/map, M-A-P. You can go on there. There's a short video and a worksheet, and it can help you do that same process we did.
Great. Well, I will have those links in the show notes so people can find them there as well.
Awesome.
Well, thank you again for being on the show and sharing your zaniness and all your other sensitivities with us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
To find the resources we discussed today, find the show notes at thequeerspirit.com. Make sure you don't miss future episodes by following the show on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be well.